Hello, everybody. Welcome back as we continue our journey through the suffering servant songs of Isaiah. Yeah, we've already seen two of them. If you remember the context here, the people are in exile in Babylon, and it's not a pretty picture. They're kind of wondering, did God abandon us? Where did we go wrong? Did we go left when He wanted us to go right? Does He really hate us that much that we're suffering like we are? Will we ever get to go home again? What about all our relatives that got left behind? All those types of things. Don't know what to do, what's happening. And we saw in the first song, and we're trying to figure out just who this servant is, the servant of God that's been called to bring a word of hope and to bring, well, that's what the songs say. What does this servant bring? In the first song in chapter 42 of Isaiah, this servant is to bring justice and righteousness to the people. And it's one in which He is going to rule justly. All those who are oppressed, all those who are being pushed down, they're not going to be snuffed out. No more. That's all done. So you have that. But even then, there's some pushback. There's some pushback being given against the servant. Then we looked a couple chapters later in chapter 40. Let's look at it. 49. I have to get to it in my scriptures here. And in this passage, we got a little bit more information on who this servant is. The servant is someone who God had picked out while he was still a baby in the womb, wasn't even born yet. Yeah, He had me all picked out what I was going to do. But this servant God is crying out to the people, hey, this guy's coming, but listen, everybody, all you coastlands, pay attention, all you people far away. It's almost as if we're starting to get a glimpse of what's going to come a little bit later in this servant song, which is, at the very end, the servants who brings back the people of Israel either to their promised land or else brings them back into relationship with God. You know, even that's kind of both things are going on at the same time there. That's not enough for God. What is also going to happen is this kind of righteousness and justice and peace and wholeness again is going to move beyond just the people of Israel. It's going to be to all the nations. I'll give you as a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. It's going everywhere, people. So now we get into the next servant song, which is in chapter 50. It starts with verse 4, and it goes on through the rest of the chapter, but most people cut it off there in verse 9. So 4 through 9 are the important verses. I like to read them real quick. The Lord has given me the tongue of a teacher, that I may know how to sustain the weary with a word. Morning by morning He wakens my ear, to listen as those who are taught. The Lord God has opened my ear, and I was not rebellious. I did not turn backward. I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who pulled out the beard. I did not hide my face from insult and spitting. The Lord God helps me. Therefore I have not been disgraced. Therefore I have set my face like flint, and I know that I shall not be put to shame. He who vindicates me is near. Who will contend with me? Let us stand up together. Who are my adversaries? Let them confront me. It is the Lord God who helps me. Who will declare me guilty? All of them will wear out like a garment. The moth will eat them up. Whoa! Use that as an insult to someone someday. Hey, you're just like a garment that the moth is going to eat up. Hey, it's in the Bible, right? It's biblical. Can we use that? Nah, that's not nice. But Okay, so what's going on in here? Well, now we see a little bit more about this servant, whoever it is. And remember, the early Christians said, this is Jesus. We see the face of Jesus all over what's being said by the Old Testament prophet Isaiah right here. And it's important to know that this servant isn't somebody who knows all the answers, someone who is, has all the head knowledge that's necessary, so you better listen to him. No, this is somebody who is still learning. Still learning. Still listening. His ears, it says it a couple times. The Lord's opened my ear, and I was not rebellious. He wakens me every morning to listen. You see, none of us knows it all. Well, I know sometimes I kind of know. Even I don't know it all. We just don't. We need to have our hearts, our minds, our ears open to learn more and more from God all the time. You're never too old to stop learning. But we see a little bit more going on in this passage too, how this servant is taking on a lot more abuse than maybe earlier. Gave my back to those who struck me. Ooh. Cheek to those who were pulling up my beard. Man, that would hurt. Didn't hide my face from insult and spitting. We see some of those things happening in the New Testament writings at the trial of Jesus during Holy Week. But here's the important thing. This servant, in this suffering servant song, the third servant song, didn't give in. He sets his face like flint, and he knows he will not be put to shame. In other words, this is a song of trust, trusting in God no matter what may happen. And even if the worst things happen to me as the suffering servant, I am going to hold fast, putting my entire faith, my whole life, in the hands of my Lord. Didn't Jesus do that exact thing for you and for me? It's no wonder those early Christians, and even we, look back on these passages from Isaiah and say, yep, there he is. There is my Lord. There is Jesus. That's exactly the way he operated and what he did for us. Yes, Jesus is that servant, that suffering servant from 2nd Isaiah, right there in front of us. It's, again, a beautiful passage. We're going to take a little break tomorrow from our suffering servant passages because tomorrow we want to focus on the Last Supper and what Jesus did for his disciples and for us on that day. And then on Friday, Good Friday, when Jesus was taken away and nailed to the cross, we will look at the fourth suffering servant song. And as we read it, you once again are going to say, "Ah, holy Jesus," just as the song says. Well, God's blessings be with you. Make sure you go and read this passage. Again, it's Isaiah 50th chapter, verses 4 through 9. Go ahead and read a little bit before and afterwards as well, but those are the ones to focus on. God's blessings be with you as we continue our journey this Holy Week.